Hellsing undoubtedly presents one of the most bleak and broken worldviews of all time. I mean, it's not really a surprise that a world filled with vampires and monsters isn't really peaceful, but even then, it can get a bit too much at times. In a world like Hellsing's, it's actually pretty fitting that humanity has split into numerous factions and organizations, each with its own goals and aspirations. But given the complex nature of this tale, it can actually be a bit overwhelming at times to keep track of all these groups, but fret not, because that's what we're here for. In this marvelous video, we'll be listing every single organization from the Hellsing manga and anime to see who holds the most sway in this ultra-violent reality. But before we move on, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons. With that out of the way, load up your revolvers and sharpen your bayonets because here we go. Hellsing Organization. Of course, we got to kick off this list with the titular Hellsing Organization, which has been protecting England from supernatural threats for multiple centuries. Hellsing is actually an acronym that stands for Her Royal English Legions of Legitimate Supernatural and Immortal Night Guards. Yeah, the name is definitely a mouthful, but you can't deny that it has a pretty badass ring to it. Hellsing was born with one singular objective: to exterminate, with extreme prejudice, any supernatural forces that threaten the safety of England. At the beginning of the original Hellsing saga, this notorious agency is led by Sir Integra Fairbrook Wingates Hellsing, a descendant of the original monster hunter Abraham Van Helsing. For all we know, the top position in the organization has always belonged to someone from the Hellsing family and is most likely inherited. However, it is likely that the director's post will finally be handed over to someone from outside the Hellsing family, as Integra has no children by the end of the series and is also past childbearing age. The organization was created by the British government in 1899 as a special agency independent of the government, military, and police. It's governed by and funded by the Roundtable Council, about whom we'll learn more in just a little bit. The Hellsing organization is mostly a secret, known only to the upper echelons of police and military, which allows them considerable freedom to act according to the director's will. Whenever a supernatural creature is sighted, the Hellsing organization has the complete right to intervene without involving the police or military in the chain of command. Though some in the government might see Hellsing's methods as unconventional, government agencies are still forced to cover for these monster hunters. The Hellsing organization also has some religious influence and actually began as the Order of the Protestant Knights. The organization's motto reads, "We will never give up in despair, for we are on a mission from God." The organization functions out of its massive headquarters on the outskirts of London, and the manor includes numerous state-of-the-art facilities like shooting ranges and libraries. Apart from the director, Sir Integra Hellsing, the organization also boasts powerhouses like Alucard, Walter C. Dornez, and Ceres Victoria among its ranks. Millennium Project. As the main antagonistic force of the entire saga, the Millennium stands against most of the values dear to Hellsing. War-hungry and merciless, the Millennium Project consists of the remnants of the Nazi Party and still sees Hitler's dream of a 1,000-year Reich as its ultimate goal. I guess the name Millennium really starts to make sense when you look at it through that lens. The group was founded in the days of World War II, but back then it was simply known as Special Order 666, which is a direct reference to the infamous Mark of the Beast. In the beginning, this Nazi organization primarily engaged in research on supernatural phenomena and creatures that could be used to aid Germany in the war effort. In 1944, Millennium found itself the primary target of the Hellsing organization, especially due to its project dealing with the creation of an immortal army. Fortunately, Walter C. Dornez and Alucard were able to intervene before the plans could come to fruition. Following the raid by Alucard and Walter, much of Order 666 was left scattered and many of their greatest scientists and researchers killed. Despite this attack, many of the key figures managed to escape the scene, and over time, these Nazis even managed to get under Walter's skin and turn him against Hellsing. Through their research, Millennium discovered a way to transform human soldiers into vampires, essentially creating an army of bloodthirsty, undead Nazis. Their leader, known only as the Major, has claimed that their only principle of action is to savor the joy of war limitlessly, and this can be seen clearly through their horrific actions. Though the Major denied having any ulterior motives, it's evident that the lust for war and thirst for blood had led these neo-Nazis to seek death in a last hurrah, which drove them to war even in the face of imminent defeat. Though the members of the organization claim to be neo-Nazis, the only person they're actually loyal to is the Major. This causes them to commit the most heinous of actions at a simple command, even if they lead to certain death. From the very beginning, the Major has had complete control of the organization and chose the Werewolf Squad as his main officer. Apart from the Wolves, the group also consists of participants from the SS, Air Force, the Navy, and the SS Parachute Corps. The Millennium's greatest success to date remains the vampire production program, which was spearheaded by a researcher known only as the Professor. The man conducted endless research on the body of poor Mina Harker, one of the characters from Bram Stoker's original novel who was bitten by Dracula, aka Alucard, many centuries ago. Using this part of Alucard's essence, the Professor managed to create imperfect ghouls who would easily overcome even the most powerful human armies. With time, the Professor was able to perfect his process, and by the time the series ended, the man had already performed the surgery on about 1,000 Waffen SS volunteers, as well as the Werewolf Squad. The organization has been split into numerous teams, with the Werewolf Squad sitting at the very top, followed by the military, the vampirized armored Kampf group, and individual squadrons under the command of its greatest soldiers. The Millennium also consists of numerous illustrious soldiers within its ranks, like the Captain, Walter Dornez, Zorn Blitz, Rip Van Winkle, and Schrödinger. The Millennium was originally stationed in the Polish town of Warsaw, but eventually relocated to a fictional South American town known as Jaburo. Scariot, Vatican Section 13. It's said that when God feels threatened, he calls upon the special agency known as Iscariot, and after witnessing their power, we kinda get it. Iscariot's full name is Special Agency Iscariot, Vatican Section 13. A secret agency that doesn't appear among the original 12 sections, this top-secret military wing was created by the Vatican for the extermination of all supernatural entities and heretics. Though their goals are kinda similar to Hellsing's, their staunchly Catholic philosophy often leads the two organizations against each other. The group borrows its name from Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Jesus, and this is where the phrase believers yet non-believers comes from. There are multiple references to Judas in the organization's lore, and it's also believed that the members of the organization hold a dagger and poison in their right hand to defend the church from all its enemies. Meanwhile, their left hand holds a rope and 30 coins as symbols for the pay Judas received for his betrayal, as well as his eventual suicide. As a Roman Catholic agency, the group is completely against all forms of supernatural phenomena and has made it their mission to rid the world of vampires, who they see as natural evil. Though Hellsing doesn't go after a vampire until it's a direct threat to Britain, Iscariot will hunt the creatures down for their mere existence. This is the reason why they were so against the idea of Hellsing employing Ceres and Alucard among its ranks. Unlike much of the modern Catholic world, members of Iscariot stand firmly against the idea of ecumenism and encourage their followers to only engage in violence against demons and heathens. The members of the organization also believe that it's their sacred duty to wage battle against the 7.5 million demons in hell. Its most illustrious members, like Alexander Anderson and Enrico Maxwell, share a special hatred for the Protestants and probably wouldn't miss a single opportunity to cut them down. Moreover, these deadly clergymen care little about international conventions and laws, often enacting their justice in parts of the world that are unwelcoming towards them. Though most of Iscariot's soldiers are vicious and extremely violent, they are also fully aware of the fact that they are betraying some of the core non-violent principles ingrained in Catholicism. Assured that there is divine punishment awaiting them on the other side, Iscariot sees its actions as a sort of sacrifice that's necessary for the safety of the Christian world. Iscariot also possesses some of the most impressive weapons on the planet, and the existence of regenerators like Alexander Anderson proves that they have also dabbled in genetic engineering to gain ungodly powers. The group's elite fighting force is called the Armed Proist Vanguard, and we will be learning a lot more about them in just a little bit. Some of the most well-known members of Iscariot are Enrico Maxwell, Alexander Anderson, Makube, and Heinkel Wolf. Though Enrico Maxwell served as the organization's chief for most of the main storyline, Makube took over this position after the assault on London. Despite Iscariot's steadfast devotion to its religion, they are mostly shunned within the Vatican, and its existence has always remained a secret from the outside world. Though Iscariot is considered to be mostly independent, the church still has considerable influence over its actions, as Maxwell was forced to apologize to Integra at the Pope's behest. The Werewolf Squad. As we already mentioned, the Werewolf Squad is the greatest military force functioning within the Millennium. These highly trained operatives only answer to one man, the Major. Each of the Werewolf Squad's 6 members is levels beyond the average soldier, and most of them have been augmented with various supernatural abilities. This squadron has been part of the Millennium Organization for a fairly long time, as we even find mentions of them in Hellsing the Dawn, back when the only confirmed member was the captain. The man behind these soldiers' superior skill set is the Doctor, who turned these neo-Nazis into artificial vampires. This was not only a great boost to their power and physical attributes, but also enhanced their bloodthirst to unprecedented levels. However, it's likely that some of the members, like Zor and Blitz, were true vampires, but this was never really confirmed. It's likely that the Werewolf Squadron had more members during World War II, but these would surely not be as powerful as the ones in the series, as Millennium's process hasn't been completely finished at that point. The most recent addition to the squad's ranks was undoubtedly Walter C. Dornez, whom the Major had recruited during his youth. Under the Major's brilliant leadership, the Werewolf Squad had succeeded in committing numerous evil acts across the globe, but the assault on London was definitely their masterpiece. The team also contains the Captain, a natural werewolf capable of transforming into a beast at will. The Captain acts as the Major's bodyguard and is actually one of the strongest fighters in the entire series, and gave Ceres a pretty hard time during their fight. Other than that, the group consists of Rip Van Winkle, a sniper, Zor and Blitz, capable of casting illusions at will, and Schrodinger, a werecat created by the Doctor. With the addition of Walter in the later part of the series, the Werewolf Squad became one of the greatest obstacles in Hellsing's path, and even Alucard struggled to truly defeat them. Ninth Crusade! Most of the groups on this list are merely organizations, while the Ninth Crusade is actually more like a medieval army. Consisting of about 3,000 soldiers, this military faction is completely devoted to the Pope and will take commands from none other than the man himself. The Crusade is divided into 4 factions, but all of them seem pretty similar, as they are all dressed in clunky armor and huge white robes. Though this doesn't seem like the most functional outfit for waging holy war, it's certainly pretty intimidating. The soldiers of the Ninth Crusade carry myriad weapons, including large caliber rifles fitted with silver halberds and bayonets, which are reminiscent of medieval armies. The attire makes the soldiers appear like Catholic Spanish penitents making an appearance in the traditional procession that is conducted during the Holy Week in various towns. The hoods conceal the identity of the wearer, and the pointed hood even makes estimating their build extremely difficult. It's said that the army was formed under the direct guidance of the Pope himself in order to annihilate Millennium's forces present in England. However, once Maxwell was given the reins of this formidable army, it turned against the entire Protestant population of England and began enacting his personal revenge against the country. From their appearance during the assault on London, it became clear that the army had been split into different factions with at least 4 distinct branches of papal knights. Each of these branches was marked by a unique mask. These factions were the Knights of the Sagely Brethren, representing the Knight Order of the Sword of Courland, the Knights of the Order of Calatrava Lanuvum, the Knights of the Military Order of Santo Stefano di Toscana, and the Knights of the Order of Malta. Of these, the Malta faction was the largest to join Maxwell, consisting of 2,457 members, while the Order of Calatrava was the smallest with just 118. Maxwell was only given the command of the Ninth Crusade once he was made into an archbishop, but he could only put the army to use during the Battle of London. They were sent out as an aid to the Hellsing Organization, but the power-hungry and fanatical Maxwell had plans of his own. Due to this, the Pope's Holy Army was forced to engage in numerous heinous actions, slaughtering soldiers and civilians indiscriminately all throughout the conflict. In terms of weaponry, these soldiers are armed to the teeth with state-of-the-art guns. Many of them wield long-barreled semi-automatic rifles that are quite akin to modified Russian PTR's 41 anti-tank rifles. These fire 14.5mm rounds and are capable of tearing through even vampires. They also carry ballistic shields large enough to protect their entire body from enemy fire. Some of the troops also operate out of helicopters equipped with IMI Galils, HK-21 assault rifles, M60 machine guns, and M134 miniguns. As a direct extension of the Vatican's military forces, these knights are incredibly well-funded and are probably the most well-armed soldiers we've seen in the entirety of the Hellsing series. Their overwhelming numbers and unwavering loyalty towards the Church and the Christian God make them a truly terrifying force that can make even vampires cower. Interestingly, many of the orders of the Knights are inspired by real-life organizations like the Order of St. Stephen, which was commanded by Pope Pius IV. Wild Geese! All of the factions we've discussed so far have been extremely loyal to either one cause or the other. However, our next group, the Wild Geese, have no such inclinations. These highly skilled mercenaries were hired by the Hellsing Organization to amp up security at the mansion. We were first introduced to them in Volume 2 of the manga, but soon they became a pretty important part of Hellsing's defenses. They were particularly useful during the Millennium's assault on London, where the fearsome Zoran Blitz was put in charge of destroying the Hellsing headquarters. Here, the Wild Geese aided Ceres Victoria in destroying much of Blitz's squadron through the clever use of mines, claymores, and heavy armaments. But soon, the Wild Geese found themselves under the influence of Zoran's psychic abilities, succumbing to terrifying illusions. Though they suffered some casualties during this part of the battle, Ceres was able to help the mercenaries snap out of it. However, this was a bit too late, as the Millennium's artificial vampires had already stormed the mansion by then. As a group of mortal men, many of the Geese were brutally slaughtered by bloodthirsty undead Nazis. The last remaining members of the groups were successful in barricading themselves inside the mansion and were able to last until Ceres finally arrived at their aid. But soon, even Ceres would run out of ammo and find herself in a hand-to-hand battle against the massively more experienced Zoran. Ceres was facing a certain defeat when the leader of the Geese, Pip, managed to escape with her in a desperate act of sheer heroism. Though Pip was struck down during this attempt, it allowed Ceres to rise to her full potential by consuming her fallen comrade's blood. By the time the assault on London ended, only 3 of the Wild Geese remained standing, and it's uncertain whether the group remained together after the battle. As we stated, the group was led by Pip Bernadotte, the endlessly charming Frenchman, and had members of all ethnicities and age groups. During their heyday, the group wielded a wide variety of weapons, such as MP5s, M4A1 carbines, and AK-74s. For large-scale damage, they carried grenade launchers and claymores. Once the group joined Hellsing, they were provided with silver ammunition to hunt down supernatural creatures, and Walter stated that they had been paid enough for their loyalty. Each of the Wild Geese is a highly skilled combatant and can also use guerrilla tactics to kill stronger creatures like vampires. Armed Priest Vanguard. The Armed Priest Vanguard is stated to be Iscariot's most elite fighting force, and after seeing their prowess in battle, we gotta agree. This shadowy group consists of Iscariot's greatest agents, and most of them have been armed with weapons that are highly effective against ungodly creatures like vampires. At the helm of this group of divine warriors is the paladin Alexander Anderson, who is undoubtedly one of the strongest characters in the entire series. We first met the Armed Priest Vanguard when the Drop was dispatched to capture Sir Integra Hellsing. However, the group was intercepted by members of the last battalion, and the ensuing conflict resulted in heavy casualties, which prevented them from accomplishing their mission. The group was then called into action during the Battle of London. After Alucard unleashed his full power, wiping out most of the knights in the Ninth Crusade, Anderson ordered his priests to retreat. But this is where the Armed Priest Vanguard's unwavering loyalty comes into play. Instead of retreating, the group started employing kamikaze tactics to get rid of Alucard's familiars. Even after Anderson used the Nail of Helena to fight Alucard, his priests remained completely loyal and even held a funeral for the priest when he finally fell in battle. The entirety of the Armed Priest Vanguard is dressed similarly in white robes without any armor. Interestingly, almost all of them seem to be wearing glasses in combat. Far more skilled than the Ninth Crusade, these warriors carry customized weapons with silver bullets to take on the ungodly threats they face every day. Though the priests are completely devoted to Anderson, they have also been shown to take orders from Maxwell, even if Anderson himself disobeys the said orders. The most well-known members of the group are Anderson, Heinkel Wolf, and Yumiko Tagaki. After Yumiko and Anderson had perished during the Battle of London, Heinkel took over as the leader of the Armed Priest Vanguard. Moreover, the warrior was turned into a human regenerator and began a rivalry with Ceres, which was quite similar to the one shared by their mentors. I guess sometimes history does repeat itself. The Roundtable Council. So far, we've only been engaging with groups who are known for their combat prowess and militaristic might. This one, however, is a bit different. We've never really seen members of the Roundtable Council in battle, and to be honest, we haven't even had a clear look at them. Despite this, it's certain that they're the most powerful ones on this list. Composed of individuals with immense political and economic prominence, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that these are the ones who actually run the British Empire. The one thing common between all these powerful individuals is their complete loyalty to the British Crown and the Queen. They usually hold meetings behind the scenes around a long oval table from where they borrow their name. The greatest authority at the table is, of course, the Queen of England, followed by the Hellsing Organization. These leaders also have a pretty rocky relationship with the Church, especially Iscariot, and their feelings are mutual. At one point, Heinkel Wolf even proposed to sacrifice himself and the current chief Maccabee with the singular purpose of taking down half the table. Fortunately, this proposal was turned down. Integra joined the council in 1989 and was clearly the youngest member among the dignified group. Despite this, she wields a large amount of power as the direct successor of her father, Sir Arthur Hellsing. The Hellsing Organization is also very dependent on the Roundtable Council for its funding, which is one of the main reasons why Integra bears their interference in internal matters. The most well-known members of the organization are Sir Integra, Sir Irons IV, and Sir Gregory Penwood, all of whom made prominent appearances throughout the main series. Hellsing Organization Special Military Forces. There's probably nothing as intimidating as a private army, and this is perhaps why the Hellsings created their own special military forces. This is a full-fledged military unit directly under the command of Sir Integra, consisting of 100 fearsome warriors, each trained in the art of war. Moreover, their training has been specially designed to teach men how to face monsters that most people can't even comprehend. This is Hellsing and England's first line of defense against the forces of the damned, and each of the soldiers is perfectly committed to sacrificing their life for a greater cause. We first saw these men during the Valentine brothers' raid on Hellsing Mansion, where they face off against a terrifying army comprised of ghouls. Though many of the soldiers were killed in this confrontation, they managed to significantly slow down the enemy, allowing the higher-ups sufficient time to mount their defense. Unfortunately, many of these fallen warriors were reanimated and used as ghouls by the Valentine brothers, but fortunately, Ceres was there to control the situation. Sir Hugh Irons would later order Integra to execute the remaining animated soldiers. Like any good commander, Integra would take this task upon herself and shoot her own soldiers dead one by one. After this heartbreaking ordeal, each of the men was given a proper burial, showcasing the immense respect they had within the Hellsing organization. Out of the 100 men that went into battle, only 8 survived, as they had been assigned elsewhere during the raid. In the anime, their role is further increased, and they serve as a vampire extermination force and are responsible for security. The soldiers are incredibly well equipped with bulletproof vests and night vision goggles. They also carry a wide range of weapons like Glocks, Hecklet and Koch MP5A3s, and the Colt M16A1. The group's resident snipers use a rifle known as the Accuracy International Arctic Warfare. Some of the known members of the group are Commander Peter Farguson and captains like Gareth Henderson, Mason Fox, Chris Pickman, and Stadler. Sadly, Stadler would turn out to be a traitor and would pay dearly for his mistakes. Gate. The Grupo de Acores Tácticas Especiales, aka GATE, is a special tactical unit that made a brief appearance during the Hellsing mission in Rio de Janeiro. The GATE was deployed with the objective of executing both Alucard and Ceres. Along the way, these agents fell under the control of Tubal-Cain Alhambra, who convinced them that the pair were terrorists. But, as we all know by now, killing vampires is easier said than done, and many of the group's soldiers feel Alucard's wrath. The poor guys were so terrified of Alucard that some of them chose to commit suicide rather than face him in battle. After this ruthless slaughter, the remaining members would try to get to Alucard, leading to yet another massacre. Alucard left these soldiers impaled on the flagpoles around their hotel, while the superiors of the group were killed by Pip Bernadotte. Needless to say, sending men to fight undead creatures of the night is always a bad idea. MI5. The United Kingdom's Domestic Counterintelligence Service, popularly known as M15, also made an appearance in the Hellsing anime. These agents are under the control of the British government and are tasked with protecting the Crown's interests within the country via espionage and counterterrorism. Due to the secret nature of MI5's work, these agents might also carry out tasks that might be considered completely illegal otherwise. The service specializes in investigation and espionage, usually operating from the shadows to provide support to the much more direct Hellsing organization. They focus more on learning about the enemy rather than attacking. These agents proved instrumental in tracking the Valentine brothers and allowed the Hellsing organization to get to the bottom of the whole affair. Though the organization doesn't appear in the manga or the OVAs, they are pretty prominent in the original anime. Over the course of the show, we're introduced to multiple agents like the Chief, Harry, Anders, and David. Each of these members played a crucial role in tracking the Valentine brothers. However, Harry and David faced particularly painful deaths due to their actions, which proves that this isn't really a job for the faint of heart. In numerous conflicts, the information provided by MI5 is often the deciding factor that can turn the tide of the battle, and they definitely deserve a mention on this list. SAS. The Special Air Service is an elite corps that functions within the British Army. They have unparalleled expertise in counterterrorism and hostage rescue. They are led by members of the Convention of the 12, and one can trace their origins to the Second World War. They were formed as a part of the Territorial Army, but eventually gained recognition as the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. They were the ones responsible for the rescue of hostages during the 1980 Iranian embassy siege and are considered to be especially important to the Hellsing Organization. Much of the Hellsing staff are former SAS and can only transfer to the vampire hunting team after considerable vetting. When SAS denied sending new members to Hellsing after the raid by the Valentine brothers, Integra was forced to hire mercenaries just to keep her security in place. This is a clear testament to Hellsing's dependence on the SAS due to their unparalleled combat prowess. The SAS made a brief appearance in the anime when 2 helicopters were destroyed by Rip Van Winkle. These soldiers were much more prominent in the anime, where they appeared in the raid at Boban's castle. Many of the SAS units were even turned into vampires in the anime, and it actually ended up giving our protagonists a pretty hard time. SAS soldiers are far more equipped than the average soldiers and are always dressed in NBC suits, which protects them from nuclear, biological, and chemical damage. They're always dressed in dark shades to avoid detection and usually use the element of surprise to overwhelm their enemies. Their primary weapon is an MP5 submachine gun, while sidearms include Glocks and Enfield L85s. Strangely, these soldiers began appearing like werewolves when they were turned into ghouls and were actually much more efficient than the regular ones. As ghouls, the SAS soldiers almost succeeded in wiping out all of Hellsing's soldiers, and might have even succeeded if they hadn't been stopped by Ceres and Alucard. The Occult Researchers. The Occult Researchers are a group of psychotic scientists who specialize in the study of the paranormal. They're most likely Nazis and made a brief appearance during the events of Hellsing Dawn. During this prequel, they were functioning out of a research facility in Warsaw, Poland, and were directly under the control of the Doctor. They were the ones who eventually mastered the process of turning soldiers into ghouls. They have been held responsible for conducting a slew of inhumane experiments on both enemy soldiers and locals in the area. Though their success was eventually limited, their experiments would finally come to fruition in the main storyline. In September of 1944, the group was attacked by Walter C. Dornez and Alucard at Arthur Hellsing's command. As you'd probably expect, Alucard and Walter nearly wiped out the entire faction, but some of the most key members managed to escape. Over time, they would conduct further experiments that eventually allowed them to create an undead battalion consisting of 1,000 Nazi vampires. Matthew, Vatican Section 3. Another of the Vatican sections, Section 3, borrows its name from the archaic word mathai, which translates to the gift of God. This is quite fitting, actually, as the section mostly deals with the retrieval of holy relics and artifacts. Their findings can sometimes grant enormous power, as we saw in the case of Helena's nail, which was bestowed upon Iscariot. Other than the nail, the group has also procured other objects of significance, such as the Shroud of Turin, the Holy Grail, and the Lance of Longinus. Ferdinand Lukes. A Catholic orphanage based in Rome, this facility is managed and owned by Alexander Anderson. Here, Anderson takes in orphans to guide them through Catholicism, and many of Iscariot's agents, like Heinkel, Yumiko, and Enrico, can trace their origins to this place. This place gives you a clear view of Anderson's righteous side, but the man still makes it a point to teach the kids about using violence against demons and heathens. Alexander still had a room in the orphanage at the time of his demise, but it's uncertain what happened to the place after the paladin passed away. Marvelous verdict! All these factions and organizations weave an intricate web that makes Hellsing's world far more realistic. They also paint a vivid picture of the different ideologies present in the world, and it's extremely fun to watch all these people interact with each other. But what do you think? Which one of these factions would you want to belong to? Let us know in the comments down below, but for now, that's all we got for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our most marvelous content, and now it's time for goodbyes, but don't worry, because we'll catch you in the next one.